Today, Cities of Migration presents From the Boardroom to the Decision Table, Training Diverse Leadership. In the next hour, we will learn about practical initiatives in Birmingham, United Kingdom, and Toronto, Canada, that are closing the diversity gap in leadership. What does it take to change the faces of civic and political leadership? What does it take to connect political and public institutions to the talent that they need for competitive growth? Joining us today are Simon Woolley, Director of Operation Black Vote, and Kathy Winter, Project Leader, Diversity OnBoard. Let's go first to Birmingham, United Kingdom. I'm delighted to welcome Simon Woolley, Founder and Director of Operation Black Vote. Simon's work has great range, from bringing diversity to the local judiciary and criminal justice system to helping launch tomorrow's political leaders. OBV has accrued an impressive number of awards for its work, too many to list here, but I will say that last year Simon was recognised as one of UK's most influential black people. Today Simon will introduce you to the West Midlands Civic Leadership Programme, which works to develop democratic leadership among minorities through shadowing and mentoring schemes. Welcome, Simon. The podium is yours.
Many thanks, and welcome to all listening to this webinar. My name's Simon Woolley. As Kim said, I'm the Director of Operation Black Vote, and it gives me great pleasure to have this conversation, which I sincerely hope that it will be a conversation about black and minority ethnic leadership in our diverse cities. First of all, a little bit about our organization, Operation Black Vote. We began 20 years ago to tackle persistent racial inequality, particularly in the criminal justice system, but also education, health, and other important areas. What we decided back then, many years ago, that if we were to change this persistent racial inequality, we needed power. We needed political power, not to ask our institutions and political parties for equality, but to demand it. And so over the last 20 years, we've been campaigning on that and working with institutions and with communities. Now, this particular project, Leadership in the West Midlands areas, focuses on two cities, one in Birmingham and one in Wolverhampton. First, why these cities? Well, these cities, I'd like to kind of describe them as multicultural, dynamic cities, in which Birmingham, for example, the second biggest city in England, has a population of 1 million citizens, of which 42% are non-white, African, Asian, Caribbean, and a kaleidoscope of other minority communities, all living in this metropolis. The second city is Wolverhampton, a neighbouring city, 250,000 citizens, and again, 28% non-white. So, why do we want a more diverse governance in these cities? Why do we want greater representation? Well, it's clear to us and clear to many that many of our institutions are unrepresentative, that we lack the voice on many important issues, and areas such as local authorities, school governors, magistrates, health trusts, that we need to have a voice on these bodies. They make fantastic decisions, important decisions about our lives. We need to be part of that process. Why should we be involved? Well, we know when we are around those decision-making tables, we know that things are better. We get more inclusive decisions that directly affect our communities. So the aims of this project were very clear, that our aim was to encourage and nurture a generation of new leaders who would not only go on to lead our democratic and civic institutions, but also to encourage others to follow suit. And we also wanted for our leadership network to continue to inspire others. So those taking up these positions would not only play a role themselves as individuals, but also inspire others too. So leaders inspiring other leaders. So we'd get generational change. But before we began, we knew we had to convince a number of people to make these projects work. They don't just happen. And so I would say to anybody that's thinking about engaging in one of these projects, there's a number of factors we need to put in place before we start. First and foremost, we've got to convince the funders and those institutions to take part. Why is it important? Why should they engage with us? Well, I would argue, do your homework. Outline where the gaps are, where progress is being made, where it's stopped, where it's barely started. This information is relatively easy to find. You know, you can look on public bodies, look at the representation, look at the way communities feel alienated from the institutions that seek to serve them. And then why your organization? Why should you be the one to deliver a powerful leadership program? There are many organizations out there. Some are black-led, minority-led, some are generic. Why you? Now, we argue here, for the case of Operation Black Vote, that we have a great history, great track record. Equally important is the reliability that we deliver. We deliver on time, we deliver on budget, that we inspire people on both sides to take part in this. And above all for us, it's about the trust within our communities that we will deliver for them. Very important to make the strong case. Once you've made the case and once you've got all the partners on board, you've got to deliver. And let me tell you this, we must deliver well. I mean, often we get overly scrutinized when we take public money. Has it been well spent? Has it been good value for money? How have we succeeded? Well, I would say when you deliver these programs, you make sure that you've got everything in place to deliver a fantastic project. What we did at Operation Black Vote, we began a recruitment process. And of course, in a recruitment process, we've got to ensure that we get the right people. It's no good just recruiting people who look like you, who sound like you. No, they've got to be smart, they've got to be committed, they've got to have the skills that will take this project from A to Z. With our own project, we selected over 50 young men and women, not just young men, but predominantly young men, to participate in that program. And they came from many backgrounds: Chinese, African, Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi. They make up the team in diversity of our dynamic multicultural cities. The work that we focused on was this. Anywhere there are decisions that affect our lives, they were under our scope. That we knew that we needed to work in those areas of public life that touched us. And so we wanted to look at roles and responsibilities of being a public appointee, sitting on a board, how they work, how that we get into them, how we can influence them, the benefit for the community, when decisions are made, how they will affect us, and of course, how public appointments are made. How do you stand for a public appointment? Because many of these roles are not democratic roles. Some are in elected office, others are not. We needed to understand the mechanism of these institutions to make sure that those playing a role in this would be better understood. Above all, though, it's not just about the nuts and bolts of how these institutions work. It's also about inspiring communities to believe that we can make a difference. From time when we go out and do this work, many people say to us, why should we get involved? They never listen to us. They never appoint us. And it's our job, if you like, as campaigners, as those that are passionate about this, is to inspire a generation to believe in ourselves, to believe in the capacity that we can make a massive difference. And we've done this so many times now that we feel that we have that great experience to be able to do this. Bear with me a second. I think I've lost my page. Got it back. We had great experience on doing this. Now, when the scheme was running and people are going to the various bodies to get their training, we helped to dovetail other events that we were doing so people would get a greater grounded experience of what activism and participation is all about. And we were very lucky that in the year that we did this, it was the 50th anniversary of the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech, and touring the UK at our request was the civil rights icon Dr. Martin Luther King. He came to Birmingham, he came to Wolverhampton, and there were crowds in their thousands, and in this particular scene that you can see there, this was the new Birmingham Library Hall, which had 700 people there. It's very important in that role of inspiring that you bring people that have done it, that have been there, that have got the scars and the badges to prove it. You know, when you hold events like this and you see people like Jackson and others, you can see the change in those attending and those participating, the self-belief that they have that anything can be achieved. And the successes now are for all to see. You know, of the 50 candidates, there are a number that stand out. And this particular individual, Sandeep Dudley from Wolverhampton, it's been a great success for us because having been part of the scheme, he now sits on a very, very important public body, the third sector representative for the police. Now, many of you will know in your own cities, in your own countries, that many black people suffer from racial profiling, stop and search. And so to have this black man in a position of power that's able to hold the police to account is transformative. It's transformative to him as an individual because he's empowered to I guess, change people's minds and hold people to account. But it's also transformative to the people around him. And they see, that's a brother like me. And he's in a position of power. 2/3 of the participants joined political parties. We said, look, how can political parties change unless we're inside, unless we are insisting on our voice to be heard? 3 or 4 are now magistrates sitting on Her Majesty's benches, dispensing justice. We as communities know about injustice in the criminal justice system. Imagine for a second that a person walks into a court and they see a black sister dispensing justice. 1, they feel that justice will be done, and 2, they feel that these institutions belong to us too. You know, for me as an activist, we tackle the ugly side of racism more often than not. But the best work that we do is to nurture a generation of young people to believe in themselves, that they can become the change they want to see. You know, we know that it's difficult. We know that we have to pave the way for them, the roadmap from cynicism to success. And on their journey, it's not only fantastic for them, but they will take others along too. As I've mentioned, this road is not easy. It's fraught with dangers that people will say you're not good enough, and why you? It's for us as campaigners, as practitioners, as activists, to help our brothers and sisters along this journey. And when we do, you know, when we see with examples like Sandeep and others, they call us and say, thanks to you, I'm in a position of leadership, of power. But they tell us time and time again, this is not about me. It's about what I can do for our community. I'd like to leave it there. I'm sure there's a number of questions that we can have after this. But for now, thank you all very much.
And thank you, Simon, for that really inspiring presentation and inspiring us all, challenging us all to ask that really essential question, you know, why is this work important? I think you've really helped us understand that. We have much to learn from your success. So now let's go from one city to the next, on to Toronto. Today's second speaker joins us here in Toronto in Maitre's offices. I'm delighted to welcome Kathy Winter to share the work of the award-winning Diversity OnBoard program. Under Kathy's leadership, Diversity OnBoard has jumped from Toronto to national and international recognition. In 2011, the Diversity OnBoard was awarded the UNAOC, United Nations Alliance of Civilization, BMW Group Intercultural Innovation Award in Doha, Qatar. Since then, it has spawned a rapidly proliferating global community of practice. So I'm sure you'll have much to learn from Kathy. I'll pass it over to you. Please welcome to the Learning Exchange, Kathy.
Thank you very much, Kim, and welcome everyone online. I'm really thrilled to be here to share the stage with Simon, my call him a colleague. We've been interacting, for some time now, and it's great to share this webinar with him. Diversity, in a sense, is a very big word, but in its purest sense, it's about all of us. Maitre focuses on a very narrow demographic: immigrants and visible minorities. We do this because a focused effort is more likely to succeed. But secondly, and possibly more importantly, because this demographic plays such a significant role in our urban centers. The Greater Toronto Area is one of the most multicultural city regions in the world. Its residents speak more than 100 languages and come from 200 distinct ethnic groups. From our schools to our streets, in our places of worship and work, diversity is part of the city's personality. By 2031, visible minorities are projected to be the majority in Toronto, at 63% of the population. And this is a sharp increase from 2006, when visible minorities represented 43% of the population. But when we take a closer look inside the boardrooms of our financial district, the seat of our provincial government, the council chambers of our municipal governments, and many of our not-for-profit or NGO organizations, the leadership picture is more reflective of the city and the Canada of our past, rather than the present. So while diversity is a fact of life in the Toronto region, our challenge is to change the dial from conversations about diversity to actions on inclusion. So we grounded our work on evidence, and that's a point that Simon also made. In 2009, we analyzed the demographic makeup of 3,300 leadership positions in a city region where close to 47% of the population is comprised of visible minorities. We found that only a little over 13% of these positions were filled by visible minorities. We did the same study again in 2012, and the figure had risen to about 14.5%. So while going in the right direction, it was very glacial. So there's a stark disconnect between the people who live, work, and play in the Greater Toronto Area and their representation in leadership positions. And this is a missed opportunity, because not harnessing this pool of talent, new perspectives, and expertise is a missed opportunity, because research has shown that diversity in leadership matters. The more diverse the voices, the perspectives, the knowledge, the experience of the leaders at the table, the more creative and innovative our approaches and solutions will be. And this in turn leads to opportunities and increased prosperity. And the conference board has told us that diversity in leadership leads to increased financial performance, greater productivity, greater ability to attract and retain talent, enhanced creativity and innovation, and increased civic engagement. Moreover, leaders reflect our values as a society. So our program, Diversity OnBoard, addresses this disconnect by connecting qualified visible minority candidates to governance positions in the many agencies, boards, and commissions in the not-for-profit, non-governmental organizations and in the public sector. It also addresses the refrain that we heard from organizations. We can't find qualified candidates, and from the qualified candidates, we can't find opportunities. So we created a program, Diversity on Board. And we currently have 1,700 qualified candidates on our program. So we debunked the myth that these qualified candidates don't exist, we can't find them. We've got 1,700 of them. And here's how the program works. We seek them out from various ethnic and professional associations and other professional associations such as chartered accountants, engineers, legal, and they apply online. And they identify the skill sets that they have and the interests that they have, what type of board they would like to serve on. And it's very important to point out that our program is based on merit. It's not about tokenism. So they identify the skills that they have. Then we interview them to find out a little bit more about the person. Get at something that Simon also mentioned, their commitment, their passion to serve, their belief in making a difference. And we provide them with governance training, governance competencies on board essentials, finance and non-financial board member, their legal roles and responsibilities, strategic planning, risk management, all the competencies that you need to be an effective board member. Organizations who are looking for qualified board members but also want to reap the benefits of diversity, they also apply online to us and they post their positions. We currently have over 650 organizations registered with us, anywhere from the arts sector, the environmental sector, the public sector, the healthcare sector, the mental health sector, the full range, and from small to very large. And they post their board vacancies. And over the time that we've been around, we've had over 1,450 board positions have been posted. And they also identify the skill sets that they're looking for in a particular board vacancy. And what our computer does, it matches the skill sets that the individuals have identified with the skill sets of the board vacancy. And to date, we have made over 700 appointments. We have facilitated 700 appointments. So organizations then get a list of the positions that the individuals have been matched to, and individuals get a list of the organizations or board positions that they've been matched to, and each party can contact the other to follow up. So our role is not actually selecting, but in facilitating that match. And our 700 plus appointments include anything from our Royal Ontario Museum to universities to colleges to small women's shelters to committees of council in a variety of sectors. Recognition is also a very important component of our program. So we hold governance awards for those organizations that have made diversity in governance a key strategic priority. And their best practices and good ideas also serve as a resource for other organizations who are on that journey as well. So as Kim mentioned, Diversity on Board was awarded the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations BMW Intercultural Innovation Award. And this award has catapulted the program to a completely new level, as interest to adapt the program has been received from around the globe. So, anywhere from London to Montreal, Vancouver, Dublin, Luxembourg, Amsterdam, it's just been phenomenal, the interest in this program. And it's currently being replicated both nationally and internationally. And it's a simple and unique program, and very and that makes it easy to replicate as well. Our tools and resources are also non-proprietary. We have tested this program, and we've proven that it works, and we want to share our resources and tools with you as well. We also have existing international channels and networks that you can also join, and so you don't have to recreate the wheel. We've got the tools. It's non-proprietary. We want to share it with you, and we have the international networks that you can belong to as well. So, in closing, just a few tips to adapt this really good idea. You need to be intentional, and you need to take one step at a time. So without stated intentions, aspirations are really full of air, and they signify nothing. So the first tip is to be intentional. Set a goal and be intent on making it, and you don't have to do it all at once. Just take one step at a time. Secondly, identify champions. Again, you can't do it alone. So identify champions who will help you gather support for the program. And measure your progress, because as we know, only what gets measured actually gets done. And the last tip is community ownership. You need to get your community ownership. You need community buy-in, because that is the best guarantee of sustainability. If the community sees that your board, your senior staff, the people who make the important decisions about the programs and services, that serves them, if that community reflects them, then you'll get their buy-in. And institutions are the best mirrors of society. So take a look at your mirror, and based on what it tells you, be intentional and act. Because again, actions speak louder than words.
Thank you, Kathy. That was wonderful. Thank you for a compelling case for why diversity matters, and for reminding us, I like the way you put this, for reminding us that it's not a conversation about diversity accounts, but what you do. It's the call to action on inclusion that really counts. And it is very exciting the way these ideas are now traveling around the world. So please pay attention. Don't hesitate to contact Simon, Kathy, and some of the other people that I know are with us in the audience today. Well, I hope you've all learned as much as I have from these innovative and practical ideas. You know what we say, good ideas travel. So you'll notice that there's a new poll on the screen coming up now. And we'd like to know from you whether you might adopt today's good ideas in your own city. You can cast your vote at any time before today's session ends. It's completely confidential. It's very interesting. So please let us know whether you would adopt one of these good ideas in your own city. So we've now concluded the formal presentation part of our webinar, and it's time for our Q&A. The question box is on screen, and I hope you'll continue to submit questions to the Q&A box while I ask Simon and Kathy the first question. Listening to you both, it's clear how deeply invested you are and how rapidly you're making progress through your work. So what I would like to ask both of you, perhaps starting with Simon, is what do you think, Simon, is the next big challenge that you are addressing through your work? Is there a tried and true strategy that you've developed to date that's going to help you get there?
Yes. Well, I think central to our thinking is encouraging the political empowerment, because it is, we argue, only with political clout that we can really force institutions and the political class to take seriously the debate about diversity, about the need to tackle persistent inequalities. Most people will say that they want to be inclusive, they want to be diverse, but in practice, that rarely happens. And I think that sometimes we've got to make the political case, and here in the UK we have general elections coming up next year, which gives us a great opportunity. But also the case that says this is good for everyone. I mean, I know that Kathy has sung this tune for a long time that says actually everybody benefits by it, but it's important we have both. The one is the pressure for change, but also the clear arguments.
Thanks, Simon. How about you, Kathy? What's the next big challenge that you're addressing through your work, and what strategies will you put to the task?
The next big challenge is ensuring sustainability of the program in those cities that we're replicating in. And the tried and true strategy is to involve all the sectors, the private sector, the corporate sector, the public sector, the funders, the foundations, the NGOs, the political sector, in our shared goal of a more inclusive society. Because it's something that we all share. We all want a better society, and we need to work together to achieve it. We can't do it alone.
Very good. So we also know that diverse leadership promotes shared decision-making, results in better decisions too. But your work provides powerful role models for our young people and for people on the margins, people who often don't get to the decision table. So I'd like to ask you to talk for a minute about that, the importance of role models and the impact that your work is having on young people or people on the margins. And maybe Kathy will continue with you.
Sure. Well, what we've heard from our candidates in our program is that it provides a network that they would not otherwise have had in their normal day-to-day lives. And this provides an opportunity for their professional development, their network in the business area, and it gives them a sense also of belonging and participating and contributing to their community. It serves as an inspiration to others who see someone like them in positions of influence, in positions of leadership, and it gives those individuals something to which they can aspire.
Okay. I would say, Kim, that when we engage in promoting and encouraging role models, it's the most rewarding element of our work, to see the transformation literally before your eyes, from somebody that thought about things could change and then being at the front of that change. And that person was part of that. It's just the most rewarding element. And of course, it's great for them and seeing them change, but those around them change too. And particularly in those areas of, youth and often deprived areas where often people are not even asked, much less shown how they can play a role in the changes in their city. The role model process is one of the key elements for this success.
That's great. The spillover effect, I think, is enormous. My next question is on that, critical idea of a tipping point. Is there a tipping point that you, Simon, and you, Kathy, have your eye on? Like when will you know, or what has to happen for you to feel confident that we're getting to that goal of a more equal and inclusive society? Yeah. Simon?
I guess the tipping point is that when we don't have to be in the room to talk about inequality, that it's a given. It's part of the DNA that people automatically think about. At the moment we have to be there, and we have to speak out. And we have to just, I guess, bear that cross, if you like, because that's the way it is. But when we see it occurring, and we're not even in the room, we'll know that we've made that tipping point difference. I think that the danger is, of course, is that when people sometimes get some representation, that you have some talented black faces in high places, they think that's enough. and it rarely is. I mean, even we can look no further than the White House. We have a black man in the White House, and still things are not good. But so we mustn't make that mistake. It's essentially about the policies. It's essentially about how business and political institutions are governed is the yardstick of whether or not we've been truly successful.
Yeah, and I echo Simon's comments too. It's really when we no longer have to convince people that an inclusive society is not only the right thing to do, but a smart thing to do, and that it benefits all of us.
That's great. Okay, Kathy and Simon, I noticed that we've got lots of questions coming in from our audience, so we're now going to switch to the public Q&A. I'm going to take a first question from John, who writes, both speakers have focused on the important dimension of communicating the need for diversity and the matching of opportunities with those interested in participating. Could you also comment on the challenges of those boards and committees who are starting to become more diverse? Challenges for both the majority members and the new minority members. And Kathy, I'll let you start with that one. When you're actually in the ground, in the boardroom, putting your program to work.
Yeah, I think, for those that are just starting, it's really to give them the support, the tools to do it. We've got on our website, we've got tools in terms of step-by-step how to diversify your board, to take a look at your community, and then take a look at their representation or reflection on the board, what your gaps are, which community you're serving, how to actually go about then doing your skills matrix, linking it again to your plan and seeing if you've got the skill sets on the board to do that and reflect, the community that you serve as well.
I think John's right to highlight the challenges both for the majority members and the minority members. I mean, for the minority members, it's critical that we shouldn't feel that we can only talk about minority issues, that we get pigeonholed into this narrow band, and that we can talk about finance, we can talk about a whole range of issues. And in fact, I would suggest to those going on boards that they, I guess, in some respects, moderate, so they don't become pigeonholed as a one-trick pony, just talking about race. So I'd guard against that. And of course, for the majority members, is that the person of colour, the person of minority member there is not just there for the picture to look good. That they are a member of the team. They should be treated as a member of the team with equal weight, and to think broader than, okay, now we've got that covered, we can get on with business. That sometimes it's about much bigger issues than just having one person there.
And I'll just add to that, leadership. Leadership is very, very important, and it's up to the chair to take that leadership role to ensure that the minority person on the board is really not pigeonholed into just writing the diversity plan, whatever that might be, but is not just there at the table, but takes part in dinner, if you will.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to our next question. Again, another question from Deborah Robertson on challenges. She asks whether you've experienced pushback from specific sectors or whether you've seen a difference in the uptake in smaller and rural communities. I guess I'll just add that, we do know that diversity isn't just a big city issue. It's increasingly an issue in suburban cities, smaller communities. So I guess this is also a question about how to introduce communities to the case that your programs are making for diversity.
It's a very important point, because often in smaller and rural areas, people say, well, we don't have people of colour here, so we don't need this project. And often it's even more important that they're in that we take up these projects in these areas, because just because there are only a few people, let's say, or a small minority, that doesn't mean to say that policies and attitudes of inequality still persist. So I think that we need to tell people, or sometimes shake people from the comfort zone, that greater diversity, even in the smaller areas, is critically important. And then, of course, there is the pushback, even from the bigger institutions and the bigger cities, particularly if they've already got some diversity. Well, we've done that. Stop banging on about it. Why can't we get onto business? And this is the most, perhaps, a difficult challenge once you've made the breakthrough, to keep that momentum going. Because if you don't, all the gains that you'll make can be quickly rolled back. Here you need to be calm, you need to be collected. You need to say that, yes, we're making progress, but there's much more to be done, and you want those leaders, mixed leaders, to be part of that. But essentially to keep our eyes on a much bigger prize than one or two around the table.
I think too that smaller or organizations really benefit from our program, where we have trained individuals, because normally many organizations, small and large, but maybe more so in the small ones, they contact the people that they know to serve on the board, whether they have the skill sets or not. And for small organizations that may not have expertise in finance, in audit, in strat planning, in risk management, the skill sets aren't there to do that. Whereas what we offer is not just a diverse individual, but someone qualified and trained in governance competencies, which then has a very profound impact on the effectiveness of the organization and of the board.
Okay, we have another question, this time from Katie Boychuk. She says, what role, if any, do you think cultural diversity or intercultural competency training has for supporting diversity in the workplace and in developing diverse leadership? So the question is about intercultural competency training. Do you want to go with that one, Kathy?
Sure, it's key. It's absolutely key to know, how to respect, others whose culture might not be the same as yours. The board dynamics, will change. There's some people on a board that monopolize, no one has the chance to speak, and that may be how it's been all the time. People, when they come in, they need to feel inclusive. They need to feel that their culture is respected. Board meetings, for example, shouldn't be held, when they're public, when they're religious holidays. There should be childcare available. It's a key component for the board members to have training on intercultural competencies in order for a diverse board to be successful.
Kim and Kathy, I guess just a few short years ago, most political meetings here in local areas were held in pubs, public houses, in drinking houses. Now, if you're of a religious persuasion where, you don't touch alcohol, it's very restrictive. And so the cultural competencies is really critical if we're to change these kind of practices that by default exclude a lot of people. You mentioned childcare too, and on religious days. And I think as well, this awareness helps those in these positions of power better communicate, that they understand the people they're seeking to serve. So at every juncture, when we're talking about these issues and these barriers, we talk about it from a perspective of we want it to be the best it can be. I mean, we spoke before about why diversity, and I often use the analogy of a soccer team. That if you're to win the Champions League, if you're to win the cup, you want to play your best team. And actually, your best team is diverse. You can't have a team full of attackers. You can't have a team full of goalkeepers. You have to have a diverse team that covers all bases. And we have to drum that to the political establishment and businesses alike.
Okay, great. We've got lots of questions coming in. I'm going to go now to Eltag Elka Vida, who asks, does Diversity on Board Toronto have the capacity and plan to reach out to other areas like mine? She's in Waterloo region. This is an area in southern Ontario. She wants to know whether it has the capacity to help them replicate the model. The region has become more diverse, and there's a great need for participation, engagement, and involvement. So this is a question about replication. And Kathy, you're a great person to answer that question.
Sure. Actually, we met with Capacity Canada from Waterloo region last month, and we are in discussions about how we can replicate in that region. We are also replicating in London, Ontario, Hamilton, and Ottawa as well. But we had good discussions with Capacity Canada, and they will be ongoing. And we were told of, the changing demographic in that area and the need for diversity on board there. So it's something we are looking at. Thanks for the question.
Okay, let's move right to a question I've got from Citizens for Europe. Citizens for Europe were a partner this summer on the second international Diversity on Board Learning Exchange in Berlin. They are leading a twin project in Europe called Diverse Leadership in Europe, and they're online with us this morning. Hi Martin, hi Catherine. I want to welcome you, and your question to Simon and Kathy is, both your programs focus on leadership capacity building. How do you address structural discrimination in the target institution and the power struggles with the so-called old white man? Why would they share power? How are you making a case?
That's a great question. And can I ask all participants perhaps to go onto the Operation Black Vote website, www.odv.org.uk, because actually yesterday we confronted and in a way defeated a powerful art institution that was showing an installation, what they said it was anti-racist, about slavery and colonialism. And we actually felt that it was exploitative. It was, in effect, white bold men telling the black community what anti-racism looked like. And we said, in your endeavor to help us, actually, you've hindered us. So we wrote to them, we met them, we protested, and I guess it's come to a situation in which now they're closing the exhibition. They will cry foul, but nevertheless, what occurred here in London was the weight of opinion, particularly from the black community, was that this largely white institution has got this wrong, and we forcibly told them so. So these are the challenges that we will face, even to those that think they're doing us favors. We must take the leadership role. We must take ownership of the issues around inequality, race inequality, and be prepared to fight at different levels to achieve our goals.
Thanks, Simon. How about you, Kathy? How does structure address structural discrimination?
Yeah, the only other thing I would add to Simon's point is to address term limits. So make sure that that you get the turnover on the board, so that the same old guard isn't there for forever, but have 2 to 3 year term limit so that you get that turnover, you get new blood, you get new ideas, you get more diverse individuals on your board.
Very good. Okay.
Can I also stress too that we need to acknowledge that this isn't just a simple walk in the park. That there have been centuries of inbuilt white privilege that still people don't realize that how it translates in discriminatory practices. And so, I think sometimes we think, well, this should be easy, everybody should get this. Because this has been ingrained, you have male privilege and you have white privilege, and this has been going on for a very, very long time. So unpicking it in a way that doesn't get people instinctively locking down is a very difficult path. And so we need multiple skills to do this. What Kathy and Kim and others are doing in terms of moving institutions to a better place is fantastic. But, let's not kid ourselves that this is a huge and often difficult challenge that some people still don't accept.
Thank you. I have a long question from Stacey Berry that I am publishing for you all to read. She comments from Toronto. It's a question for you, Simon, about how members of the African Canadian community navigate through the gatekeepers of the Old Boys Club. She said, I'm just reading, Black people are the most underemployed, underrepresented in politics, executive positions across multiple sectors, shut out of decision-making, and do not have an effective public policy model to address our needs. Employment equity is not on the agenda of many of our political leaders. So the question is, how can this community create the kind of change that will ensure political and economic mobility? This is a big topic. We want a short answer. In your experience, Simon, can you recommend a specific strategy that can start to address this agenda?
Yes, political empowerment. It's simple. It starts with us. It ends with us, but everybody benefits. It's going to your friends, your neighbours, coming together, setting the agenda, seeing where the weak links are, driving a truck through them, and then moving on to the next stage. It is wholly and solely down to us.
Okay. How about you, Kathy?
I agree with that.
You would agree. Okay, thank you. That's great. I'm going to move now to Dee McCartney. She would like to know whether your programs have had any success in encouraging women from cultural groups where women traditionally take a secondary role to men and are not encouraged to lead. It's a big question, but I'll take it to you, Kathy, about the representation of women from cultural minorities.
About one half of our roster is comprised of women, and because they're visible minorities, many of them are in those positions, and are doing have gone on to become chairs of committees or chairs of the board as well.
How about you, Simon?
We here at Operation Blackbird make a big call in our projects to always have 60-40, 60 women, 40 men, simply because we need to address the gender deficit. We're very pleased at Operation Blackbird that over the last 4 years, the only 2 women of colour in the present coalition government have been women alumni from Operation Blackbird's leadership project. The first female black cabinet minister, Baroness Saida Barsi, and the first woman of African descent, Helen Grant, is now a Minister for Culture and Media. It's central that we recognise the gender deficits within our race projects.
Great, thank you. We're coming very close to the end of our hour, so I'm going to take just one more question from the public. This one from Narsha Naik at the Mississauga Peel District School Board. She asks, what measures did both initiatives take to create an environment or a culture that kept the diverse leaders at those tables? So here's the classic recruitment and retention question. So it's a very important one, because it's a measure of how effective your programs really are. Kathy, do you want to comment?
I think that the key one for us was actually training. So they go to the board table with the expertise, so they can actually make a difference in terms of the running of the board and ultimately the running of the organization. What we are doing, starting in January, we will be doing diversity and inclusion training for boards as well. So they need to understand that it's not sufficient to have what we call a bum on a seat, someone from a different background at the board table, but they have to be included. They have to contribute. And what in the evaluation that we did, what our individual candidates told us was because they had that strong expertise and training, they didn't feel like a token. They actually contributed to making a difference. But training for the board is also very, very important in terms of, cultural diversity.
And you, Simon?
Yes, well, I really think it's important that we support those on board, particularly from minority communities, to understand that just because you're there, it doesn't mean that everything's now okay. And so, just yesterday I was up in another city speaking to a head of the board and saying, look, I need to get some people around to support you, because 1 minute it's fine, the next minute you've got your own people and others attacking you. So if we're to have this here today and tomorrow and the next day and successions, that we've got to be supportive and handhold and guide boards and board members if we're to see this through to the end.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Simon. Thank you very much, Kathy. We've come to the end of the Q&A. The hour is almost up. So we would like to, I always like to close the presentation by asking our presenters a couple of really quick, what I call a short fire question. I'm not looking for a long answer. I'm looking for as little as one word from each of you. I always like to know what, Simon, Kathy, what is the one most important secret to your success? Kathy, do you want to give me that?
I think it's
self-belief.
Pardon me?
Sorry. I would say self-belief.
What was that, Simon?
Self-belief.
Self-belief. Yeah. Your convictions, working with, staying true to your convictions. And Kathy, self-belief?
I think it's determination to create a movement.
Determination to create a movement. Well,
Sorry,
those are...
Sorry, more than one word.
Yeah, no, these are powerful ideas to leave this wonderful session on. And my last question for both of you is, what is your next move? What's the next big idea for each of your organizations? Simon?
The general election.
The national election. That's a good one.
We're saying that the black vote will decide who has the keys to Downing Street.
Interesting.
Bravo. Kathy?
Yeah, we're replicating across Canada, and we are introducing online governance training, not only for individuals, but for boards, which also includes diversity and inclusion training.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. Our time has run out. We have unanswered questions. We'll try to send all those unanswered questions to our presenters, and we'll get them online so that you can see them. Now, on behalf of all of our participants, we want to thank Simon Woolley from Operation Black Vote in Birmingham and Kathy Winter from Diversity OnBoard here in Toronto. I want to remind the audience that Kathy and Simon and many of the people in the audience today are deeply engaged in the work of promoting diverse leadership through projects like these, and that we now have an international community of practice being convened here in Canada internationally through the Diversity OnBoard, but also through Diverse Leadership in Europe, the program run by Citizens for Europe. Both Simon, Kathy, Martin Wilhelm at Citizens for Europe would love to hear from any of you who may be interested in learning more about how you can participate in these great initiatives. So thank you. And to all of you here today, I'd like you to imagine this excellent work being interpreted in your city, adapted by your organization, or changing your neighborhood. We'd like to hear your stories, and we'd like to share more good practices like these with you. So please stay connected. Today's webinar recording and resources will be available at www.citiesofmigration.ca. Please bookmark the page and share it with your colleagues and networks. We really want your feedback, so please complete our online evaluation by clicking on the link that you'll see momentarily on the screen, and which we will also send you in a follow-up email. Today's webinar is brought to you by Cities of Migration at its new home at the Ryerson Maitrey Global Diversity Exchange at the Ted Rogers School of Management at Ryerson University, where local meets global to put great ideas to work in cities like yours. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to seeing you again at the next session of the Learning Exchange. I urge you all to go out, enjoy your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever this glorious day will find you. Bye now.